Today is February 8th, and we're reading from Mark chapter 5. I love the accounts of Jesus confronting the powers of darkness. In every case, it shows the unchallenged authority that Jesus Christ has. Every one of these situations, the demons can't respond even. And when he says to them, hey, be quiet, they have to be quiet. So there's no challenge here whatsoever. You don't see Jesus screaming, yelling, trying to persuade them to do something. He just tells them, and they obey. It again shows us the awesome power of God. So Jesus goes into this graveyard, and there's a man, and he is filled with demons. Now, we know that people can be filled with one spirit or two, but this one is filled with hundreds of demonic powers and forces. And so we see the man's characteristic. It says he had an unclean spirit, so it's very specific, but that he lived amongst the tombs. I mean, he was attracted to death, and they tried to bind him, and they couldn't hold him. So he has all this uncontrollable attraction to death. All these things are typical of people who are possessed by demons. And so Jesus, though, he comes in, he has this incredible strength as well. You can see that people are terrified of him. And so Jesus is entering into this territory, and from a great distance, the Bible says in 6, that this man ran and worshiped Jesus. Now, I don't know whether this man, because, demons manifest, so there are times that they will withdraw. Still, a person can still be possessed, but they don't manifest. And so I don't know yet here if it was the man that came and there was a hunger and desire and he worships Jesus. That's the only explanation I have for this. Because demons aren't about to worship Jesus, okay? They have defied him. They have denied him. They have abandoned Jesus. So that doesn't make sense to me. But it does demonstrate that within a person who is possessed, whether he's possessed or oppressed, there has to be within a person a desire to be set free. If anybody who wants to be free has just a little bit of a desire to be set free, they can be set free. And that's what I see happening here. Anyways, but the voice that cried out, it's not the voice of the man, but the voice of the demons speaking. And they're addressing Jesus and, hey, what have I to do with you? What are you doing to us, Jesus? And they address him, Son of the Most High God. And they say, have you come to torment us before our time? Now, that's a significant verse because it demonstrates that demons, fallen angels, know there's a day of reckoning, a day of judgment, and we know that hell was prepared, as the Bible says, for the devil and his angels. So they know the day's coming of which they will be assigned their judgment and be tormented. So they come to Jesus, and Jesus commands the unclean spirit to come out. And then he asks them, what is your name? And they speak and they share legion, which is many. And so anyways, they ask him an interesting question. The demons beg him, verse 12, saying, send us to the swine that we may enter them. Now, it's an interesting thing that the demons would request it. They knew they couldn't do anything without permission from Jesus. But it's equally interesting that Jesus would give them permission. Why would Jesus cater to what dark, unclean spirits would request? Now, I have to say that I believe personally that they did not realize that Jesus was setting them up. That in entering the swine, the pigs, that they would go over the hill and the pigs would die. And somehow in there, I have to believe that these demons didn't re-enter other people, but rather they were directly assigned and went straight to their demise or their punishment. But again, that's my speculation. I don't know what happens. It's an interesting thing, but what the Bible tells us that that when the people saw the one who was demon possessed, and that he was clothed and in his right mind, because Luke tells us that he was naked. He didn't have any clothes. Another demonstration of being possessed. And so they see him clothed in his right mind, and they know something very powerful has happened. And it says they were afraid. They were afraid what this all meant, that Jesus Christ took command and control over these demonic forces, but they were also afraid because of the manifestation of the demons. All of these pigs were killed. And acting the way many people do, they just pled with him, just get out of here, just leave us alone. And so go home, he said, to your friends and tell them, Jesus said, go home to your friends and tell what God has done in your life. So Jesus is telling the demon, he wanted this man that had previously been possessed by demons, wanted to go with Jesus, wanted to follow behind Jesus. But Jesus says to him, no, you go home and you tell people what God has done for you. And how God has had compassion on you. And so look what it says in verse 20. It says, and he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him, and all marveled. You know what's interesting to me? There's nobody to disciple him. There's nobody to train him. No one's going to mentor him. Nobody's going to hold him, help him. But this experience is more than just a momentary experience. He's supernaturally changed from the inside out. And now he's going almost immediately. He's an evangelist. He's going to tell everybody about Jesus. Now we're told here about a girl who has died. Jairus, who's the ruler of the synagogue, he comes to Jesus and says, my daughter is homesick. Would you please come? She's at the point of death. And lay your hands on her that she may be healed and that she will live. And so on the way, he runs into this woman with the issue of blood. The Bible says she suffered many things. She'd spent all that she had, wasn't better, gone to all these physicians. But she had made a resolution. She said, if I can just touch the garment of Jesus, I will be made well. So her point of contact, faith was released that Jesus Christ could perform a miracle in her life. And it says that immediately when she touched the clothing of Jesus, that her blood dried up and she felt. I like that because it says that she felt in her body she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus says, knowing in that 30th verse, it says, and knowing he in himself that power had gone out of him. You know what I like is the fact that Jesus identified that power was channeled out of him into the woman. The woman felt that she had been healed. So when we lay hands on people or God is moving, do not misunderstand this, but there are times that you will feel the power of God. There are times that it will be like electricity going right into you. And I don't think that there's anything unique or unusual about that. This is the power of God, and she experienced it, and she was completely made well. In fact, he says to her daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. And finally there, we find that Jesus arrives at the home of the ruler of the synagogue. But before he gets there, he's met by somebody who says, hey, listen, trouble the master no more. Your daughter is dead. Jesus says to him, don't be afraid, only believe. Remember last time we talked about fear nullifies faith? He said, don't be afraid, only believe. So he goes to the house, and there's lots of weeping and wailing going on, and Jesus comes in the middle of that, and he says, why are you doing this? Why are you weeping? This child's not dead, just sleeping. And of course, they ridiculed him, the Bible says. They're ridiculing Jesus. But here comes King Jesus. He puts all of those doubters outside, takes the mom and dad and probably his 3 disciples with him. And what does he do? He doesn't pray. He just takes her by the hand and he tells her, get up. And she gets up and she walks around. She's 12 years of age. And listen, they were overcome with great amazement. What do you think of the crowd, the doubters on the outside thought when, he walks out with this girl and she's walking around? Boy, he put them in their place, didn't he? And so there was just this awareness, the power of God that just was continually flowing in and around the life and ministry of Jesus. Oh, that we could enter into that stage. Jesus said, the works I've done, you're going to do, and even greater works than these. Oh, that we could live in the season of the greater works. I believe we're entering into that period. I pray the Lord will bless you today. May you go with increased faith. Don't worry, trust in God.